So Santako's meeting, we did speak about whether another stay away was possibly on the cards. She didn't give me an emphatic no, but she did say if it came to that, and it doesn't seem likely at this stage, but she said if it comes to that, they would adhere to the agreement, which means 36 hours notice. But of course, much of last week's taxi strike in Cape Town was underpinned by a dispute over valid reasons for impounding taxis. The Minister of Transport insisted at one point that the city was not acting in compliance with the national law. But the mayor then insisted she was the one who didn't actually understand the law. The matter, of course, is still being decided in court. But let's get an understanding of what Section 87 of the National Land Transport Act says about impounding vehicles that are used for transporting the public. And I'm joined now by legal analyst Sinawo Makangela. Mr. Makangela, thank you so much for joining us. I've been taking a look at Section 87, and I'm hoping you're going to guide me through, because I am no lawyer. But I'm trying to sort of crunch the sections that I think are perhaps most relevant. In Section 87.1, it says that an officer is, and I'm paraphrasing slightly here, if that officer is satisfied on reasonable grounds that a vehicle is being used for public transport without the necessary operating license or permit, may impound the vehicle pending an investigation. So this obviously deals with the fact that if a minibus taxi, for example, is on the road without that driving permit, or is on the wrong route, or doesn't have its permit, no paperwork, then the vehicle can legally be impounded. Have I interpreted that correctly?
That's it. It's simple as that, Sally. There is no other interpretation. That is the correct interpretation of that statute. Remember, the law is meant to be understood by those that it affects. So taxi drivers understand clearly what that says. If you are given a route, you have to be in the Belleville route. You can't be using a different route when you're expected to be in that Belleville route, because your permit tells you where you should be operating. Right.
Okay, so that's clear. But then there's this section which maybe is open to interpretation, and it's Section 87.3a, speaking to roadworthiness, and it says, and I'm paraphrasing a little here, when an officer finds a vehicle used for public transport to be so defective as to be a danger to persons or property, then the officer can seize the permit or, and I'm quoting here, prohibit the person forthwith to use the vehicle for public transport. Is that a grey area? First of all, it doesn't specifically say impound, but it does say you can stop the person using the vehicle for public transport. But then also the other area that possibly is open to interpretation, so defective as to be a danger. Is that something that could be interpreted different ways?
Let's come to what makes the motor vehicle to be roadworthy. The lights are not working. How are you going to signal to other road users that I'm taking left now? It means it is not roadworthy, because there is a function that is served by those lights. The tires do not meet the standard where you can carry passengers. Hooter is not working. Perhaps there are problems with the chairs. You are carrying passengers. Your chairs are not fixed. They are just moving. So they are danger to the passengers. So at least it's giving an officer two options. It can take that operating license. By implications, you will not be able to carry passengers because you don't have the operating license. Giving you some period, go and fix this, or impound. So that power still lies with the law enforcement officer.
Okay, so you don't see that as grey area, because I was thinking you could take the permit, tell all the passengers to get off the bus and allow the driver to drive the vehicle away. Are you saying that even though the word impound is not used there, it actually does essentially mean that impounding is an option?
Yeah, because if you say you can just use the motor vehicle, it's going to take off these passengers, in the next stop it takes other passengers. But remember, if it takes off the operating license, it means the motor vehicle has been taken out of the road.
Yeah.
That's another measure. Or he can impound. He's empowered by that provision, by that very provision. That task, that's a discretion of that officer, that he can take that motor vehicle, he can impound that motor vehicle immediately.
There was something the Transport Minister said last week. She said if everyone interpreted the law as harshly as the City of Cape Town did, there'd be no drivers on the road. Do you think that there's a reasonableness that needs to be applied to this? Or do you think that actually, in reality, you need to stick to what is roadworthy, what is not, and if you're driving the public, you are held to an even higher standard?
Of course, safety of the people, there are complaints about the PES, that is a road accident fund, that maybe those things that look like minors, they contribute a lot on the road, of which they could have been avoided. So at least if this is what the law says, everyone is expected to comply with the law. If there are any engagements that the city, together with its drivers that are servicing its public, they can engage on those issues, but you can't enforce non-compliance with the law. The good thing is that now they are approaching the court. Perhaps they will be looking for a different interpretation of Section 87. As you have just read now, hopefully they'll get a different interpretation then, if any. Otherwise, that is what it says. It says what it says. That's it.
Yeah. So
everyone is expected to comply with it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, for you, as a lawyer, it's absolutely clear.
No, it is. It is definitely clear, more especially if an officer found these defects. Because we all know what a roadworthy vehicle is. So you can't come to court and say, my motor vehicle is roadworthy when it is not. You know, as I say, the brakes, they're not working, the tires, the wiper, all those those that should function in a motor vehicle, if they're not working, you can't say it's roadworthy.
So the other issue that came up last week, and I'm not sure if this matter has been cleared, but the Transport Minister accused the City of Cape Town of using bylaws that were not in line with the Land Transport Act. But this is very strict, actually. If we just look at the Act, I'm not sure if you've looked at the bylaws for the City of Cape Town. The City of Cape Town said, no, we're not using any bylaws for this specific thing. This is very clear. The Land Transport Act is actually very strict. This issue of bylaws, have you had a look at that? Does that factor in any way?
No, I haven't. Actually, what the National Land Transport Act makes reference to the bylaws is that a designated area where you know that you impound motor vehicles, you take them to a certain area, that will be designated in terms of the bylaws of a particular municipality. So other than that, the officers are empowered by this act if on reasonable grounds, reasonableness now, perhaps it's what will be interpreted by the court if it's a subjective issue. It's not an objective one, because as I say, objectively, if the brakes are not working, obviously that motor vehicle is a danger to the driver, to other road users, including the passengers in the very same vehicle. But if there are other factors that need to be considered, perhaps it's what the court will be looking at in the urgent application that is being mooted. Other than that, I don't see anything. For as long as the conduct is within the provisions that you have just read now, there are very limited chances that they may succeed on the interdict.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really clear. Legal brain looking at that act, saying it's actually extremely clear. And you can, in fact, according to this National Land Transport Act, you can take a vehicle that transports the public, you can impound that vehicle if it's not roadworthy. And that could even relate to windscreen wipers, because let's face it, if the rain comes down, you can't use your windscreen wipers. That could endanger your passengers. Very interesting perspective. Legal analyst Sinawo Makangela talking to us about the National Land Transport Act, which of course has been at the centre of a great deal of argument and really difficult situation in the Western Cape in the past week. But let's move now.